I was out on a scout today and I came across a tulip poplar tree that I cut down around a year ago, and part of that tree I didn't harvest, and I noticed there was some bark on it. So I peeled the bark off, and I wanted to share this with everybody because bird's nests seem to be one thing that's difficult for individuals to obtain while out here if they don't know what they're looking for. They'll come across materials and they're not 100% sure if it's going to make a viable bird's nest. And I always say tulip poplar bark, especially in my region, makes one of the best bird's nests that you're ever gonna find. So the thing is, people will see this bark, and if you look real closely here, you can see it almost looks wet. It actually is really, really wet. So many people would pull this off and say, it's too far gone, and throw it to the side. But the reality is, if you start to break this apart, look at all those beautiful fibers that are pulling apart here. All right, so this is still prime material. Very, very good material, very easy to work at this stage. Even being a little bit damp like this is not a problem. Now, of course, in a emergency situation, if you need a bird's nest right at this moment, you're ill prepared. But if you need it and you are ill prepared and you still need it, this isn't going to work because of the dampness. But if you start to process this down and just set it out or set it in a sunny area for a short time, it's going to dry out really quickly. And I personally believe this, compared to any type of dried bark, is way, way easier to work and process. So I'm going to just show you quickly. You know, you just work this back and forth like this, pull it apart a little bit, and you could see how quickly this stuff is just shredding apart. That outer bark's falling off, and we're starting to end up with beautiful bird's nest material. Exactly what we want. So look at how quick, how simple and easy that starts to process down. So I'm gonna process this, and then I'm gonna take it out and I'm gonna lay it in an opening and allow the sun and the hot air just to dry it out. It won't take too long. As it's drying, I'm gonna work a little bit, and within an hour's time, I'm gonna have myself a good bird's nest. And it's important that we're thinking ahead, thinking what's gonna happen down the road. And if we find this stuff, collect it, keep it with us. It's not gonna go bad once it's dried out. Keep it in your kit. When you need a bird's nest, you have it with you. Okay, so I got a sunny field here behind me, and I brought my bird's nest along, and I'm just gonna lay this out. Now remember, the more that you work this, the more that you're going to break this down into thinner pieces, and then because there's more surface area and it's finer surface area, it's gonna dry out quicker. So don't be afraid, as this is laying around in the sun, to break down these fibers even more in order to expose them to that sunlight and heat to help dry them out. So just go lay them down, and then we'll take a look at it in a little bit. Now about 15 minutes have passed, and I worked once in a while the bird's nest while out in the field, and I can tell you that by looking at it right here, it is almost 100% dry. So that quick we can process a bird's nest that we gather that is wet. So I wanted to show this because I think it's important that when you're out here, don't take things for face value. Sometimes you need to look a little bit beyond what is actually going on around you, especially using natural materials. That stuff was wet. If you would pull that off and hand it to anybody and say, do you think I'll have a fire in a half hour with this? They'd probably say no. But if we process it properly and understand what's going to happen and how to use the environment around us, so we understand how to use the wind, how to use the sun, and then just a little bit of manpower to process this, we have a nice dry bird's nest. And if you're thinking ahead in a situation like this, you can hang this off the back of your backpack, go on with your trip. It'll dry out just as you're walking from the breeze and from the sun hitting it, and then you have yourself, when you need it, a good bird's nest. So it's always important to think ahead and not take materials for face value. Think what we can do with them in just a few simple minutes. So this was Dan Wowak with Coalcracker Bushcraft. Hope you enjoyed this video. As always, check us out at coalcrackerbushcraft.com, and until next video, stay in the woods.